So I'll start this review discussion, whatever you want to call it, with a story from the book Unintended Consequences by John Ross. Well, good evening, birthday boy. Henery Bowman rolled his eyes as he came in the kitchen after being dropped from sledding with some of the other boys from school. His mother, Kathleen, knew the phrase mildly embarrassed her son, and she laughed at his reaction. Come get some hot chocolate. Your Uncle Max is here, and Erwin Mon is with him. They're with your father in his study, waiting for you to get back. I think they have something to show you. Henry shrugged out of his coat, pulled his galoshes off, and put them on the porch to dry. He took a cup of cocoa from his mother and padded into the father's study in his socks. Max Collins was sipping a scotch and water, and Erwin Mon had a beer in his hand. Walter Bowman drank tea. Well, look who made it back. You didn't freeze your little dingus off, did you? Max Collins was grinning his most engaging grin. Henry smiled and lowered his eyes. He knew his uncle didn't really expect an answer. Happy birthday, Henry, Erwin Mon said to the boy. Thank you. Henry, your uncle and Mr. Mon have some presents for you, as do I. They all go together, so we thought we'd see that you caught us all at the same time. Max Collins held out a box that was blue-gray, about 3 inches thick, and roughly the size of a legal pad. This one goes first. Was going to buy it for myself, but decided you need it more. Let me borrow it sometime, and maybe I'll decide to get one too. Henry took the box, and his eyes got big as soon as he saw the Smith & Wesson logo stamped into the lid, a Smith & Wesson presentation case. He had heard of them, but had never seen one. He knew of only one gun the company shipped in a presentation case, and his hands felt awkward as he lifted the lid. His information was correct. Inside was an end frame, 44 mag with a 5-inch barrel. This was unusual. The big Smith & Wesson was cataloged with a 4-inch, 6.5-inch, 8 3/8-inch barrel. The gun Henry was staring at had one of a special run of high 500 made for H. Harrison Company in 1958. The metal glowed with the milky blue finish that was characteristic of all Smith & Wesson guns, Smith & Wesson's best guns, made while Carl Hellstrom was still in charge of operation. Henry lifted the revolver out of the satin lining, pressed the cylinder latch forward, and swung out the cylinder. Each of the 6 chambers was burnished with the factory's proprietary process that allowed fire cases to drop effortlessly out of the cylinder. Even when maximum pressure loads were used, Henry closed the cylinder, cocked the weapon, and tried the trigger pull. The trigger broke without a trace of creep, at what Henry judged was no more than 2 pounds, with a release like breaking glass. The double-action pull was smooth and positive, and Henry immediately noticed that the trigger itself was not the standard wide-grooved target version that was best suited for slow fire, but a smooth, polished one perfect for double-action shooting. Max Collins saw his nephew examine the non-standard piece. Fran Logton in the service department in Massachusetts set you up with a trigger when I told them the way you were apt to use the gun. Says it's their Jordan combat trigger, made for Bill Jordan on the Border Patrol in Texas, and anyone else that's on the company's good side. Henry had written to Fran Longton when the trigger stud of his uncle's .357 had broken, and he had sent it back to the factory for repair. Longton had inquired as to how many rounds had been fired through the weapon, and Henry had replied that he had shot over 20,000 rounds for the gun in the year that he had used it, but he had no idea how many had gone before. The service manager had apologized for the premature failure and sent Henry 1,000 fired cases along with the repaired gun as a bonus. This one's from your dad, Walter Bowman said. Holding out a cardboard box, Henry laid down the revolver and took the package from his father. It was heavy, and when he opened it, he saw inside there were a pair of 8-cavity bullet molds with the handles. He did not need to read the letters stamped on the mold blocks to know that they were made by Hensley and Gibbs in Oregon. Only H&G had the skill to properly make 8-cavity gang molds. I was going to get you just one mold, Walter explained. Then I wrote the folks up there, and they told me to buy a pair, made for the same time, with the cavities matched to half thousandths, so you can fill one and let it cool when you're filling the other one. Said with practice, you could cast over 1,500 bullets an hour. So you won't have to spend all your time. You won't have to spend so much time down in the foundry. Walter used the term his wife had jokingly invented to describe the corner of the basement Henry had set up to cast bullets. They feel a little heavy, but I guess your wrists are up to it. Good excuse for a revolver shooter, Henry said immediately. Exercise for a revolver shooting. Mr. Mann has something for you also, added Walter. Aaron Mann reached down behind an leather armchair and retrieved a steel 5-gallon bucket with a wire loop carrying handle. It was obviously fairly heavy. He set it down in front of Henry, who lifted the lid. It was filled to the brim with empty brass .44 Magnum cartridge cases. Should be 4,000 there, Irwin said, speaking for the first time. And I've got the dies, 5,000 primers, 4 4-pound cans of Hercules, 2,400 powder coming Monday or Tuesday. Max throwing. You can start casting this weekend and be shooting by next Saturday. Henry did not know what to say. His feet were still cold from sledding, but he did not notice. His hot cocoa was forgotten. He picked up the revolver again and looked at his dad. Can I cast some after supper, Dad? I don't see why not. It's Friday. How much lead have you got left? I was almost out, but Mom took me to the Goodyear place on Monday for more wheel weights. I got them all melted down, flux, and cast into ingots this week. I have almost 200 pounds of alloy. He was rapidly calculating how many bullets that would make. Each .44 slug was 250 grains, and there were 7,000 grains to the pound, a little less than 40 pounds per thousand. That's enough for about 5,000 bullets. Max Cullen laughed. If you didn't have to wait for the molds to warm up and the lead to melt, hell, kid, you could knock those out tonight, he joked. As it turned out, Henry turned on his 3 lead furnaces and started preheating the molds on a hot plate before sitting down to dinner. He got to bed a little after midnight. When he did, he was once again out of bullet alloy. So why did we read that before I started talking about this firearm? So, during COVID, I was listening to a gentleman read that book, that audio book. Shortly after, I walked into the local gun store, and there was this Smith & Wesson 29 .44 Magnum. I didn't give it a whole lot of thought. I had, at the time, a Smith & Wesson 69. This is a 5-shot L-frame .44 mag. And I had a Charter Arms Bulldog and .44 Smith & Wesson. So I didn't see the need for another .44 Magnum. Didn't give this much thought. Went home, did a little looking, and then went back and realized that this was indeed a 5-inch Smith & Wesson Model 29. This one has not been lettered. But if you look at the time frame, that the order for H.H. Harris started the time said in the book, and it continued for a lot of years. And supposedly it was never 100% filled. Not all 500 of them ever made it there. So there's a chance that this firearm is part of that. I don't know for certain. I don't know if I want to know. I bought it because of the book. I didn't buy it for any value reason beyond that. And I shoot it. I shoot it a lot. And knowing that, it might make me not shoot it as much. So, lighting is bad, but you can kind of see the supposed milky blue finish. I had to ask if the front sight was original, and it appears that the front sight is original after talking to some other Smith & Wesson guys. Fully adjustable rear sight. This one does not have the Bill Jordan special. It has the wide target hammer and the wide target trigger. Sorry, my finger's in there. I don't know if the grips are original. I don't. If somebody does, that'd be cool. There's a huge chunk taken out of the thumb rest on that one. I do have other grips for it. I have a set of pack miners, which those are available everywhere. And I have a set of wood grips, but somebody chopped out the front so they could get at the can't see it on here. You get at the strain screw. I think I'm saying that correctly. If not, I apologize. It's the one that adjusts the tension on the hammer. So the trigger on this thing is spectacular, which is to be expected. This particular one is a 29 no dash. I don't know if they were all that or not. It does have some wear. So the front of the cylinder is worn. You can see some blue ones worn off from it. Some more blue ones worn off down below. When I got it, it looked like it had been left in a holster underneath the seat of somebody's truck. So I don't really know what else to say about it. You know, it's a 5-inch. That's a big deal. Hold on a second. I'm going to get a different revolver. So this other revolver was the first revolver I purchased, shot, etc. It's a Smith & Wesson 28. Yeah, you can't see it. It's 28-2 Highway Patrolman, I guess is what they call them. This is what started me really liking end frames. Of course, it's not going to focus. It's incredibly cruddy right now because I just shot it a lot, like a couple hundred rounds. So it's the same frame as the 44 mag. We're looking on the barrel. It's not loaded. Front sight's painted instead of having that plastic grip. But looking at the two side by side, you can see how much nicer the bluing is on the 29 than the 28. If this was a 27, the bluing would probably be nice. I don't really know what else to talk about with this 44 mag. I guess I'll end it. If people have questions or comments, maybe I'll try and answer them. There's just not a lot of information unless you get on like the Smith & Wesson forums. There's very few videos. There's a video done by James Yeager where he bought one and he made his own 5-inch, and then he found a 5-inch, but his was more the modern 5-inch with a full underlug, whereas this one's only got the half underlug. There's a pretty good there's a bunch of copies of these apparently where they cut them down, but where the Smith & Wesson logo is centered on the barrel, I was told that increases the odds that this is not a cut down one. See, there's a little bit more frame wear there. So I guess that's it.